Welcome to Candidates Night 2010. My name is Jennifer Cassius. I'm the chair of the Library Trustees, and I welcome you all. We have quite a panel here tonight, I'm glad to see, and a nice turnout. That's great. All questions are written down. We'll be giving them to Mr. Major to review and to ask the candidates. If you would like to write out a question during the question and answer period, there are forms up there, and please give them to Laurie Houlihan, who will make sure that Norm gets the questions. Norm Major is again our moderator this year. We're very lucky to have him. He's our state representative and has been for 14 years. I'm not going to go on and on because I'm sure we all know Norm, at least I do. I've lived here for almost 35 years, so I'm very well aware of Norm's contributions to Plaistow. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Norman Major.
Well, thank you. And first of all, I want to thank the Plaistow Public Library for hosting this, because I think it's a very valuable forum so that people will get a chance to meet the candidates and hear what they have to say and what their qualifications are. So no further ado, how we're going to do this. First of all, we're going to go through, and what I might as well do is take right around the table. Each candidate will take no more than 2 minutes to introduce themselves and tell why they're running for office. And then after that, then we'll do the questions and answers. And I have a whole slew of questions. I've been separating them by office here. And where there's a void in questions on office, then I've got a list I made up myself. Okay. So everybody gets an opportunity to respond. And then after the question period, then we'll give every candidate another 2 minutes to say, for a wrap-up, what they want to say about getting elected. We'll see what they have to say. Okay, I'm going to start down at the end of the table.
I'm Jennifer Cassius. I'm running for library trustee. I've been a trustee for over 10 years. Started on the board before we built this new library. In fact, I was involved in the planning of it all, and it's quite a gem for the community, I think. And I'd just like to continue helping out with the library and its strategic planning, what we're going to do in the next 10 to 15 years, and I'd appreciate a vote. Thank you.
Hi, Mary Ellen Pelletier. I'm running for town clerk. I've been the town clerk for 15 years. 5 of that was deputy clerk. I enjoy the job. I'm running again because my term is up. I like the job. It's busy. I've kind of stepped up the past couple of years, and I'm on the Town Clerk Association Legislative Committee. So that's been a new experience to go up and speak with the legislators about issues that affect our jobs. Thank you all for a vote, too.
I'm Charles Buzzy Blinn. I'm a selectman. I've been a selectman for 18 years. I probably do it for the love of the town. I've been here for 55 years. I was basically brought up in Plaistow. I've been to most of the schools. I really enjoy being a selectman, so I decided this year I'd run for another term. So I appreciate your vote, and good luck.
Hi, my name is Joyce Ingerson. I've lived in Plaistow for over 12 years. Currently, I serve on the Budget Committee in the town. I've also served on the CIP Committee, the Capital Improvement Committee, Town Report Committee. I've also done a term on the Conflict of Interest Committee. I enjoy being on the boards. I enjoy working with all the boards, and I look forward to the elections, and I respectfully request your vote. So.
Hi, I'm John Sherman. I'm asking for your vote to continue serving you as selectman for the next 3 years. I've been a selectman for 3 terms, which is 9 years. Before that, I was on the budget committee for I'm not sure how long. It was something like 10 or 12 years. Since I've been on the board, I think I've led a lot of improvements, really focused on long-range planning for the town. I'm a big proponent of the capital improvement plan. I've been on that committee for many years. I've been on the Town Report Committee for the 9 years that I've served as selectman. I really think that committee has helped improve the town report. I think we have one of the best town reports in the state. We win an award almost every year. I'd like to continue to serve you as selectman. While I'm very proud of the accomplishments, my accomplishments and the board's accomplishments for the last 9 years, there are still things to be done, and I would like to continue to serve you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Withy, and I'm running for my 3rd term on the school board. My husband and I have lived in Plaistow for 20 years. We have 2 boys. My oldest, Michael, is a senior at Timberlane High School, and he's been accepted to Plymouth State University next year, where he will be studying elementary education. My youngest is Alec, and he's a freshman at the high school. I have a BS in business and an MBA, and I work for an energy services company as an energy analyst. I think it's important to give back to the community. I've served on the Pollard School PTA as a treasurer. I've served on the middle school PTA at PTSA as a treasurer. I served 3 years on the Timberlane Regional School Committee Budget Committee, and now I'm in my 2nd term on the school board. I think children are our future, and I think it's important to give them a good education while being sensitive to the taxpayers' needs. I think one of the biggest issues facing the school board is to continue to fight for quality education while balancing the district's pocketbook at the same time. So I hope you'll consider voting for me for re-election. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Charlie Lanza. I've been a resident of Plaistow for 24 years. I've been an alternate on the Plaistow Planning Board for the last year. I've been able to familiarize myself with the existing members and existing projects and issues going on throughout the town. I work for a local water utility and construction company. I have a background in land surveying, mapping, planning, and permitting. My profession and day-to-day activities involve planning, permitting, and working with other local land use boards. This provides a unique point of view, whereas I get to see how other boards operate and do business. If elected to the planning board, I will work to maintain Plaistow's rural character and keep it consistent with the master plan while providing a technical point of view. I appreciate your vote.
My name is Steve Ranlett. I've been on the planning board for the past 12 years. 9 years of that I've been vice chair, and the past year I've been chairman. I've enjoyed being on the planning board. It's a lot of fun working with Tim and the other board members. I'd appreciate your vote. And also a retired police officer from Plaistow.
Good evening. My name is Bob Harbin. I'm your candidate for moderator. First, I'll tell you a little bit about my family and myself. I've been a resident with my wife in town for about 26 years. We've raised 2 daughters in town. One graduated from Timberlane, and she's now her 2nd year in college, and I have another daughter that's still a sophomore at Timberlane. We're actively involved in the community, but this is the first elected public office that I've sought. I'm very active in my church, St. Luke's, formerly known as Holy Angels Parish, and president of the Exchange Club of Plaistow, a service club, part of the National Exchange Club of about 1,000 clubs throughout the country. And we've had this club, my wife and I founded it 5 years ago, and we meet twice a month in this place, in the library. My qualifications are what led me to seek this job. As an attorney, both in Mass and New Hampshire, I'm aware of the revised statutes. I'm aware of legislation coming forward. I've also had the opportunity of many years of study to learn to be unbiased and neutral and objective. And as a moderator, your qualities, I'm told by Mr. Sargent, is you need to be unbiased and neutral. But to moderate and keep the procedures moving forward, but allow people their opportunity to speak, are right under the Constitution. As a National Exchange Club former president and chairman of Jurisprudence and Laws, I have conducted deliberative sessions at the national level of about 1,000 members during our annual conventions. A moderator also has a very important job of running the elections here in town. I have the qualification of having run national elections for the National Exchange Club and been in charge of tellers, counters, speakers, timekeepers, all of these issues that seem to be relevant to the office of moderator in town. So those qualifications led me to seek the position. You may ask, well, how come you're not on the ballot? Because I am a write-in. Well, I did not find out until after it had,
Your time is up.
my time is up, thank you.
Bernadine.
I'm Bernadine Fitzgerald, and I am the incumbent for the treasurer of the town, a position that I've held for the last 16 years. I think it's a very important position, and I think I have quite a vast background of business. I was vice president of the Plaistow Public Bank for 30 years, and I think I come with a lot of experience. That doesn't always count for everything, but a great deal in my mind. I enjoy the work, and it's a very important position. It's a great aid to not only the town manager, but the selectmen in their decisions that they make on their day-to-day cash value. I have served on many boards in town, the budget committee for many years. I've been on the policy on Old Home Day for 30-odd years, and I am a native of Plaistow, and I love the town, and I am trying to give back to them my expertise, and I thank you.
Hi, I'm Martha Fowler. I'm a candidate for the office of treasurer. I'm a lifelong resident of Plaistow. I have 25 years experience, accounting experience. I'm a past treasurer of the Cub Scout Pack 118, present treasurer of the Boy Scout Troop 18. And I decided to run for treasurer because I was looking for another challenges in my area of expertise, and I found that it would be a great way to give back to the town too. I'm also was elected supervisor of the checklist in 2007, which is a 6-year office that I'm currently still holding. Like I said, I decided to run because I'm looking for more challenges in my area of expertise and wanted to give back to the town. So I would really appreciate your vote on the 9th. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Naffa. I'm running for Conflict of Interest Board Committee. Some of my experience, I served active duty Marine Corps, Army, National Guard, Army Reserve, and Marine Corps Reserve. I'm the manager of operations of Beckwood Services, which is located here in Plaistow. I'm a resident of Plaistow as of 2007, and I think there's a fairly recent resurrection of the Conflict of Interest Board, and the townspeople voted this in not too long ago, and to have as many vacant spots, I feel that it's my obligation to give back to the community, especially where I'm no longer connected with the military, and I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Well, you've heard from the candidates that are here tonight, and we have some candidates running for 2 positions. Steve Renlett running for moderator and the planning board, and I think there's one other running for 2 positions. I guess they're not here tonight. I think we'll start off with the selectmen. I'll ask the question, and you'll each have an opportunity to answer that question. And I'll start with John Sherman first, and we'll work our way that way. And another time I'll do the opposite. So what is the selectmen's vision for the town of Plaistow for the next 5 years?
I would say it's primarily to continue to do what we're doing. I guess I hesitate answering because as a board, we haven't taken a vote on what our vision would be for the next 5 years, other than that we have just recently updated our goals for the town manager. That doesn't extend out through 5 years, but our CIP does. We do have that kind of horizon. I would think that some of the things that are right in front of us that, or will be in front of us in a medium-range future is doing something about water resources in town. We have to do something about that. I would also say that improving the traffic situation in town is another key goal that we'll need to establish. Talking about traffic is interesting, by the way, because we're in the midst of getting a study back from Rockingham Planning Commission. It's a little bit late, but one of the things about traffic is we need to implement traffic calming here on Main Street. We need to slow the traffic down. Some people would say we need to make traffic on Main Street more inconvenient, because unfortunately, because it is so convenient, we get a lot of through traffic that we would prefer to have on Route 125. So we need to do something about being able to direct the traffic over to Route 125 and hopefully get it off Main Street. Other things that we need to do in the next 5 years is we need to get our hands around our highway improvement plan. We have a plan and we need to get it updated. We've had to cut back on expending money for our town roads because of various budget concerns. I think those are the things. Oh, and in the list of warrant articles, we need to do something about the safety complex. We're asking for money this year to help us fund a study to figure out what the best thing to do with the safety complex is. That's a confusing subject for a lot of people because you drive by the safety complex, it looks nice, it's in great shape from the outside. However, we need to do something. We need to expand it or do something. We need to select a site, whether we would expand on-site or move it. So that's another thing that we'll need to tackle in the next 5 years.
Okay, Joyce?
I kind of have a disadvantage here. I'm not on the Board of Selectmen now, but what I'd like to see as a vision is pretty much what John was saying here about the safety complex. I think it's very important that we move forward with that. I'd like to see that up and going. Also, the traffic situation on Main Street, we have to do something about that. I'd like to be part of that planning. And I think that we need some more planning and development and something in Plaistow to put us on the map so that people notice us, that we get noticed as people come through this town. That's about it.
Buzzy?
Yes. Again, I think John covered a few, especially the traffic comment on Main Street. The development of 125 and expansion really threw Plaistow in kind of a awkward position. It's left the big trucks coming by our schools with tankers. They're bringing rubbish up through. So we've gone to Concord, the selectmen, in this past year and discussed it with them. So hopefully we will get some, like he said, some calm, some lights, some things that'll change because we got to do something about the traffic. I think the safety complex is another issue, which I agree is coming down. Again, we don't have a plan. We just talked about that, matter of fact, a couple weeks ago. Geez, we don't really have a 5 or 10 year plan. Even though we're working from a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, we can't have that vision because of the economy and everything, you know. All plans cost money, so that became an issue. Our big plan is to keep the budget down most of the year. But as far as the safety complex, my job is to make sure whatever we do, it's going to be worthwhile for the town people, not to overpay for something we don't need. And so my position on that is the expansion of the safety complex is a real important issue to the town in the next 5 years. In the highway, again, the highway, being a selectman, not like Joyce, I'm familiar with some of the things. The highway safety, the highway department certainly needs a good look at. We're dealing with a place that really isn't fit for mankind. It's not a good place, and we've been trying to get that straightened out as far as the town. So I think that the town of Plaistow has a board of selectmen right now that basically really works hard to make sure that people get the best bang for their buck, and I think Plaistow is strong, vibrant, and I'm looking forward to the next 3 years. So thank you.
Thank you, Buzzy. Now we'll move on to the planning board. And the question is, we need more questions. If not, I've got my own questions, but so it's up to you guys. The question is, what is the most important thing the planning board should work on this year? So we'll start with Charlie.
I think John Sherman mentioned it. I don't know if it's something that will be completed this year, but I think water resources is one of the most important issues in town. There needs to be some more in-depth studies and just more eyes on it. And aside from that, I would agree with the Main Street's an issue. I drive across it every day, and there's something's got to be done there.
Steve?
One of the major issues that I see is all the empty retail spaces that we have out on 125. We have the economic redevelopment zone, which hopefully that entices businesses out into Plaistow. But I'd like to see businesses come to Plaistow and stay out on 125. And again, the biggest issue I think we have is traffic mitigation on Main Street. Traffic calming techniques that we have to work with the selectmen to instill, either stop signs at major intersections, but those are the two biggest impacts for Plaistow.
We'll move on to the school board. We'll ask you the same sort of thing. What's the most important thing that the school board should be working on once the election is over?
There are several, I think, things that we as the school board need to continue working on. One of them I mentioned before is the quality of education in the schools, to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep moving it forward so that our children are prepared when they leave the high school. And another thing we have to look at is we have older buildings for our middle school. It's an older middle school and our high school, and we need to be thinking about we have plans on new schools. We just have to be thinking about when the right time is to move forward with those plans so that we can, help the education in the schools offer more classes or in different classes than we currently are able to offer with the space that we have. While keeping in mind that we realize that it's very tough economic times too.
Now, on to the town clerk. What do you see as the most pressing issue that needs to be improved in the town clerk's office?
The biggest thing I see from the residents is they want to use plastic pay. They come in every day, we have people ask, you don't take a credit card, you don't take a debit card? We are moving forward on that. We should have those online by the end of the month. Possibly slightly sooner, but I'll say the end of the month to keep it safe. Other than that, a lot of what we do is governed by laws the state sets up, so we can't make major big changes. But that's about just the credit card use. The public would like to do that.
How about hours of service?
Well, we're currently open about 42 hours a week to the public, which is pretty much in line with most of the other towns around. I don't know of any that are open over that. We do close early on Fridays, but we stay open late on Mondays. But most of the residents, I haven't heard any major complaints from anybody. Occasionally people come in on Monday and said, I tried to come Friday afternoon. They have their mail notice in front of them, the hours are on it, and they say, oh, I didn't read it. So they're frustrated if they do come in and they didn't read. But most of them like the early opening on Friday or the late open on Monday. If we have to, we'd move the hours to the regular standard 8:30 to 4:30 like the rest of the building. But I think they like an early opening and a late closing.
Okay. And on town moderator, those are going to be big shoes to fill. And there's two running for the town moderator. What do you bring to the town moderator position that will fill these shoes? I will start with Steve first.
I bring my 17 years of law enforcement experience dealing with the general public. Also, my 9 years on the planning board, I was vice chair. Learned a lot from Tim Moore as chairman, and in the past year as being chairman. it's about all my experience that I have. When I did re-sign up for planning board, I was talking to Mary Ellen, and nobody had stepped up to sign up for moderator. And so a lot of times I think it's a sin that nobody signs up. And she did tell me that Barry wasn't signing up for moderator. I thought about it and then put my name in. Just I've watched Barry, and the town's given me a lot, so I thought I'd give back to the town other than the planning board.
Thank you, Steve. Bob?
Yes, thank you. I bring my 35 years of legal experience and 25 years of Exchange Club experience on the local and national level. My experience, as I mentioned earlier, has to do with running elections, being in charge of elections, and also moderating. I also have the experience of being a district court conciliator, making sure that the actions of the district court move along, and to try to mediate between different parties, the plaintiffs and the defendants. I'm also a parliamentarian for the New England Exchange Clubs, so I have all of this experience, and this is an opportunity for me to give to this town that I've lived in for over 25 years, to bring this experience to the town. That's why I'm seeking this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Question to the town treasurer. What do you plan on bringing to the town treasurer's position in this coming year?
Well, I think probably more. We've really been kind of fine-tuning this now, the finance director and I, for as long as she's been there. A more comprehensive eye on the money for the town manager and the selectmen, especially as it nears tax time, so that I bring to them a cash flow. I can give them the projected payroll, the school payments, things that I know that are fixed expenses. So that enables them to better analyze the financial bills for the town, so that, like the last two times, we have not had to borrow money, and this is called a tax anticipation note. And that costs to like $26,000 in interest, and that's a ballpark figure every time. So over a year's time, if that could save better than $50,000. I think that's my main object this year, to fine-tune that.
Okay.
I guess what I would bring to the town treasurer's position would be well, and being at a disadvantage of not ever being in the position is to communicate with the financial officer and manager as much as I can, and to figure out what's where things need to be put, and I'm not sure.
That's fine.
I'm not never being in the position, I'm not sure what I would bring, other than my, communication skills that I can not exemplifying right now.
You're going to learn it and work at it.
And, I have some I have computer skills that I can utilize as far as getting in the information organized and all that I can do. But other than that, I'm not sure what else I'll need for the job, not having the job yet.
Well, thank you. And Jennifer, we don't want to leave you out.
No, don't leave me out.
Running for a library trustee. What's the most important improvement that the library trustees would be considering in the future?
Well, we've been in the building now for 10 years, if you can believe that. We still consider it the new library. But after 10 years, there's some wear and tear on the building. It's used constantly. And we're looking over the next year to make some minor improvements, paint, do a little carpentry. We've had some energy audits done, so we're working on that as well. So those are the things, sort of like, just like your homes, after you've 10 years, you have to just do the usual things. So that's what we're looking to do, the trustees.
Thank you. And Dennis, your last, but it's a very important position. What do you plan on doing to improve the Conflict of Interest Committee in this coming year?
Well, my initial plan is to get on board with the committee, understand what it is they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. I think some of the benefits I do have, not being a lifelong resident, is that I don't know everybody, so I'm not biased to one side or the other. I bring a lot of conflict management and problem-solving skills from what I do on a day-to-day basis and a lot of my experience with the military. I just initially want to get on board, get some of the ropes, understand what the protocols are, the SOPs, and see where my life experiences can bring to the table and solve. To be completely honest, I don't know if they're backlogged or they have no pending issues. I really don't have that much information yet on what their current workload is, but you know, I'm a motivated individual. I have no problem getting my hands dirty, and I usually like to try to tackle the type of things people try to avoid. So without actually having the experience, that's how I'm going to, if elected, tackle the problem that going down that road.
Thank you, Dennis. Now, back to the Board of Selectmen. This actually says, please describe the 3 major issues you feel Plaistow is facing at this time, and how would you approach a solution? So what I'm going to do is, rather than going through 3, you each take 1. And so we'll start with Joyce, a major issue, and what's your solution?
I think pretty much what we've already mentioned. One of the major issues is the safety complex. I think we need to look into that more and do some more planning and development and try to improve upon our safety complex that only benefits the town. Not just the town residents, but also the employees of the town. I think it's important to keep them safe also.
Okay, Buzzy, I mean.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in Plaistow, even though I just got done saying that everything's going beautiful. I think that I think the comment on, well, I'm going to stay with the courthouse. I think the courthouse is a major issue in Plaistow because we've got 2 years on a contract with them, and they might be pulling the courthouse out of Plaistow. And if they do that, it's going to be an economic problem for the town of Plaistow, the taxpayers, because the police will have to go out of town, we'll need more officers, it's just going to be not a good thing. As it is, right now, we give them free rent, and we also figured at the end of the year, by doing that to the court, now to keep the court in Plaistow, it's saving us $100,000. So hopefully in the next year or 2, we'll get that straightened out, and hopefully we can get them to build maybe a court down here and the economics straighten out. So I think the courthouse is a big issue to the town of Plaistow.
Okay, John.
I'm tempted to bring up new issues because we just talked about some of the things facing the town. I'd like to talk about revenues, how we get revenues from other than property taxes. Improving that, for example, we have water line and we charge water usage fees. We need to revisit those fees to see if we can't get more income out of that. But I guess the real issue I'd like to speak to is a committee that we're right in the process of forming now called Plaistow First. which we've got a charter for that committee, and what we're looking for is a 5-person committee from the public that would look at the needs of the town as far as what buildings and land we should own, and also look at the inventory of the current properties that we own. We own some properties that probably aren't doing us any good, and we should figure out a plan for disposing of those properties and getting them back on the tax roll. And then also, as the third phase of that plan would be talking about looking at properties that perhaps the town should and could be interested in. Obviously, the Smith property at 148 Main Street is available, and that's an issue that we'll be working on this year, depending upon the vote at town meeting. But that just, to me, that just highlights the point that we really don't have a plan for the buildings and land that we do own and that we should own, and merging the two and figuring out what we should dispose of and what we should consider acquiring in the future, if any.
Hey, I want to go to the selectmen again, and we'll start with Buzzy. And the question is, do you think the town budget growth should be controlled by the cost of living and the percentage growth in the population and business? Let me restate that. Do you think the growth in the town budget should be constrained to the growth in cost of living and the growth in the population and business? And either yes or no, and why?
That's not my expertise. My expertise is making sure everybody gets a fair shake in town. But I would say yes, and I would say at the second half of that question was what?
Do you think that the growth in the town budget should be constrained to the growth in the cost of living,
right,
and the growth in the population? If the population goes up 2% and the cost of living goes up 2%, should the growth in the town budget be constrained to 4%?
I would think the population would be the way to go, not the 3% index.
It's your answer.
Yeah.
And why?
I don't know why.
Okay. Joyce?
I think the budget, the growth in the budget, relating it to the growth of the town or the percentage of growth of the town, there's a lot more variables to developing a budget than that. There's a lot more involved than that. I think everybody has to look at a budget, and you have to look at the full picture, not just the growth of a town, but there's, like I said before, there's a lot of variables involved. So should it be increased and decreased according to population, the percentage of it? Of course. But again, there's other things involved with that go along with that.
John?
No, I don't. I think those are critical factors that we should use when we set the budget, but I don't think it's as easy as applying that kind of mathematical formula. There are more things that go into the cost of living, or many of the things that affect our budget typically rise higher than the cost of living. For example, health costs. The town of Plaistow is basically a service organization. A large percentage of our budget is devoted to salaries and health costs go up by more than the cost of living. Other things that are big parts of our budget are things like heat, fuel oil, and so forth, and those tend to outstrip the cost of living. I do think those are critical factors that we should consider, and we do. We've talked every year about using the cost of living and which is the correct index to use. I think this year we talked about the library used a different one than we do, and so we should standardize that. But no, I think you elect people to make good decisions for you based upon information, and it's more than just a mathematical formula. Those things are critical factors that should be taken into consideration, and we do, but to absolutely limit them by that isn't going to work, in my opinion. And also, there are things that affect our budget that aren't part of that discussion, which are things like reimbursement from the state. We are losing revenues there, and that impacts our budget. Also, things like car registrations. Car registrations are down, so we're bringing in less revenue there. That affects our budget. Rather than getting $1.5 million, I think it is, for car registrations, now we're down to $1.2 million or $1.3 million each year. That's more than incidental money, and I really think that the selectmen are elected and the budget committee are elected to make those types of decisions for the townspeople and to present their recommendations to them. And they should take into consideration the factors that you're talking about, especially the cost of living. But I don't think it's just as easy as constraining the budget by that figure.
Thank you. We'll move on to the planning board. And the question, and we'll start with Steve this time, is what do you think is the most critical issue that the planning board has to contend with, and why?
I would believe it's growth, businesses. I know, new businesses come into town, they want to develop. One of the things I'd like to see is try to entice them out under 125. As I stated before, we have a lot of empty storefronts. So if we can keep them from developing, either out on 125, try to keep them up into storefronts if we can.
Okay, and Charlie?
I would agree with Steve. I think one of the most important things is the commercial area with so many empty buildings and different pieces of land that aren't being fully utilized. I think there's definitely an opportunity to look at that, make sure that zoning is properly matched up with properties, and make sure that it's going to be the best that it can be.
Thank you. This is a new technology question. It's here, so I got to ask it to the Board of Selectmen. How available are you for emails during the day?
What was the question?
How available for you for emails during the day? Well, I guess what they really want to know, can they communicate with you through email?
Of course.
John?
Sure. I work in an office building in Andover, and during the day I'm online all the time, and I'm available to sneak over to Hotmail and check my account, and I do it multiple times during the day. I always give a quick response to a question. Matter of fact, I sent the town manager an email today asking him, if he hasn't already, to make sure that the town report was put on the town website. So, and there were some questions today that came up about the town report, and I was available to answer them. So, I'm on computer all day long and have access to Hotmail, and do look at Hotmail more often than the company would prefer I do, probably.
Buzzy?
Yeah, I'm there all day at my place of business, and email comes through instantly and it's given to me. I have a secretary that takes it off the machine, and I reply as needed.
Good. As a matter of fact, I remember once when I was on the Board of Selectmen, we had one selectman who would absolutely not take a phone call, wouldn't even give his number out.
Ooh.
And to me, how could you serve as a selectman,
I don't know what that is.
I just got another one for the selectman candidate, and then we'll get back to the others. Okay, and for the selectmen, and we'll start with John this time. Is the town able to sufficiently handle future growth, or do we need to access outside agencies to meet our needs?
Some of that isn't a selectman question, some of that's planning board. We did see a study, I lose track of the years longer, I'm a selectman, a couple of years ago called a build-out analysis that was contracted by the planning board, and it was surprising to see the numbers, how much Plaistow could continue to grow. It was surprising. Our population is just under 10,000, those very round numbers, and according to the build-out analysis, we could go up to, I think it was almost 15,000. So we need to make sure that there are planning regulations in place that would, I won't say prevent that kind of growth, but control that kind of growth. That's really not a selectman's issue. We would work with the planning board to discuss options about what could be done. The commercial growth on 125 is interesting. Yes, we just had Plaistow designated as an economic development zone, which means that the state of New Hampshire is available to provide assistance to businesses that want to move in to 125. Certainly one of the places of growth that I would support is growth that brings jobs into town. Like, I'm afraid more people here than we'd hope. I've been out of work twice in the last couple of years, and it occurs to me there's no place in Plaistow for me to work, the kind of professional background I have, and that's unfortunate. I mean, I was looking at jobs in Stratham, and I think to myself, why couldn't Plaistow have something like that? So if there was growth that would allow perhaps the building of something, a business park or whatever, that would allow for those types of professional jobs in town, I would think that would be a good kind of growth that I would support.
Joyce?
Pretty much what John said. I think I would be in support of any outside source that would come in that would provide jobs and opportunities for this area. I think it's both planning board and a selectman issue, not just planning board. I think it's important for the two boards to work together on something like that.
And Buzzy?
I concur with both of these. I guess the thing is that we had a economic discovery that Governor Lynch came down, and there's some help that's going to be given to the town of Plaistow to help the people develop 125 and its future, and hopefully there'll be jobs with it. Water is the issue when you come to growth in Plaistow. Again, water, we don't have the resources to carry any kind of large manufacturing companies, and that's been our problem right along. So it's a good question, but planning board and selectmen would be involved in the analysis. So,
okay. I am going to turn it over to the planning board now on your suggestion. So the question on the planning board, and Charlie being new, probably doesn't have the experience as Steve, so I'll let Steve go first. You want me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. Is the town able to sufficiently handle future growth, or do we need outside agency assistance? If so, what would you suggest pursuing?
No, I think we can handle our own growth with the zoning ordinances and our subdivision regulations, and if we keep in step with our master plan, then we can handle the growth. Again, as we've all stated, and I've stated, we've had the economic redevelopment zone, which, if it all comes together, the federal government will give $400,000 in a tax break over 5 years to businesses that come to Plaistow and bring the jobs. But to answer the question, I believe we can handle our own growth.
Charlie?
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to handle the growth. I think the residents of Plaistow, the planning board. Like I said, I've been on it for a year now. I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't, work together between the selectmen and the planning board and other land use boards and ensure that the growth was properly handled.
The school board, Lisa.
Yep.
What do you see for growth in our school population, and what is in plan to handle it?
There was a study done either a year or two ago that showed that I think the growth in this area has pretty much slowed down. The biggest growth that we've had is at the high school and the middle school level, which, as I discussed earlier, those are two of our buildings that really need something done in the future. The middle school, the way that it was built, it doesn't meet the modern standards of a middle school, so there's things that need to be done in that area. And we have to, again, look at the high school because that's where the biggest population growth has been. But it seems to me like the study showed that in this area, and it was Sandown and Danville that showed that was where we were getting a bigger population of middle school and high school. And the elementaries have seemed to level off.
Moderator candidates. What, you've all seen the present moderator operate. What improvement would you bring to the moderator position? We'll start with Steve.
Thank you, Norm. Again, I guess it would be in Martha's position, not being in that position as moderator. As Norm had said, they're awfully big shoes to fill. I just have to just take over with Barry, where Barry left off. I think Barry does an excellent job in running the meetings. The school board meetings, they run smoothly. Just try to keep it as professional and running smoothly as Barry did.
Bob?
I would echo that it's very difficult to improve on Barry Sargent's performance. Because of his performance in the past, that's why I've never run for this position. And when I heard that he wasn't running, I said, gee, that would be a position I would qualify for. I've already spoken to Mr. Sargent about the duties and tasks of his position, about what would be required, and worked out with him the details of can I fill the position. And I won't say fill his shoes, but I'll say do my best to do a great job as he did. I've also talked to other town moderators throughout the state and asked them about what they do in their towns, and could I fulfill that same position here, and I think I can. So, thank you.
Well, thank you. On the town treasurer. And we'll start with the current town treasurer. Is there any improvement that you see that you plan on, if re-elected, to accomplish in the treasurer's job? You had mentioned what you were going to do on the investments.
I think I can do this one here. Well, everything can be improved, and I think I have a great rapport with the bank, and that is a great place to start. But seeing that all the fees and fines are absolutely given to us, and we have that. We have the best interest rate, I find, around, and keep on all our services. I'm on daily contact with them. Then all the department heads are all get all their money to me on Wednesdays. I do go in on Wednesdays because Thursday is payday, and that's when the checks are signed and so forth. But that is not a one-day job. I am at their beck and call if the planning board needs checks for any of their vendors, because the treasurer is in charge of the planning board escrow accounts, all the impact fees. I do 2 checking accounts for the police drug asset forfeiture account, and I have a new account last year of the rescue and medical equipment, and that is all like the ambulance money that comes in from the Medicare and so forth to the town. These all have to be reconciled, and I have taken courses in the banking as to how to kind of improve all of these things, obligations that I have. It has quadrupled in the 16 years that I have been there, and I think I've worked diligently, and I am proud of my record, and I continue to keep improving.
Martha. Yeah. It's going to be probably more difficult because you haven't served in the office, but do you have any improvements that you know of now that you would bring into the office?
Again, there's awful big shoes to fill there if I get the position for Mrs. Fitzgerald. I'm not sure, not seeing how her system works, what would need to be improved. Perhaps her system is just perfect the way it is, and I will just continue with her system. Not knowing what it would look like. I'm not sure if she does it all by hand, or if she has it on the computer as spreadsheets, or how she does it. If she does it by hand, I probably would do it differently on a computer. I've been doing that as my in my own job at Ashley's Hallmark. All my bookkeeping work and all that is all computerized there. So I guess that would be the only improvement I probably could do to her system if she isn't on the computer, is to put it on a computer, in a computer system. But again, not knowing what she's got for a system, and it may not need any improvement at all. So.
Well, thank you. Mary Ellen, rerunning for the position of town clerk. What's the first issue you would concentrate on after being reelected?
Now, after being re-elected, I have all the reports to do to close out the meeting. So that's the first issue. There's a lot of paperwork that's done after any election that's filed with the state. And again, probably to finish off the credit card. We've been working on this for over a year. And we've just got the contract signed and just sent it out. Actually, today it went out. So we've got some work to do to get that done. Other than that, just trying to learn the new laws as they change them and follow what the state sets up that we need to do. There's not a whole lot we can change without the state changing laws. We collect the fees. When they raise them, we collect the increases. We report them to Bernadine and whatever agency we must.
Thank you. Trade on after being elected.
Go ahead.
Dennis.
The first issue is jump in, get my feet wet, understand what the protocols are. The whole plan is to investigate any and all queries or potential complaints that get filed through I believe the forms are at the town hall, and then they get submitted to the committee. I diligently look at any and all complaints and see what merit they have, and to answer and bring to closure any potential conflicts of interest.
Thank you. Here's one that a yes or no answer, and I think most of them, well, I won't say what you're going to say, but I want to quickly go through and get a response so the people can say, well, that's what they said, and we'll see what they do. And I'll start with Jennifer. Do you plan on being present at all or most of the meetings of the position that you seek if you're reelected?
Absolutely.
Mary Ellen?
Definitely.
Buzzy?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
John?
Yes, and my record speaks for itself.
Lisa?
Yes.
Charlie?
The answer is yes. As an alternate, I made every meeting this past year.
Steve?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Bernadine? Martha?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
No, we're going to hold you to that. Another question is, and it's better to ask somebody that hasn't held a position before. Charlie. Do you know what the commitment to this office is that you're seeking on the planning board? And tell me what you think the commitment is.
As I just mentioned, I have gotten my feet wet. You know, as the expression goes, I've been on the board as an alternate for the past year, so it's not like I don't have any experience on the board. And as far as the commitment goes, I'd say that I do feel that I understand what's involved, and I'm willing to put the time forth and be there when I say I'm going to be there.
Bob.
Yes, I know exactly what the commitment is, because I took the opportunity to meet with Barry Sargent and go over all of the effort and work that he does and how he plans his year and how he plans for the deliberative session, what he needs to do for the elections, and heard from him person to person. This is what the job entails. This is what you need to be committed to do, and I'm prepared to do exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a question for the three selectmen, and I'm going to start with Joyce on this one. How and what can we do to get more people to know and learn that we have a town forest?
I would say get it out there. More coverage, more advertisement, more maybe develop or have the committee that is developed for that be more proactive with contacting the residents.
Buzzy?
I would think promoting it through the selectmen and all the boards and the schools and really promoting the town forest. There is a grand opening in about 3 weeks. So we are trying to make the forest knowledgeable to the people. So I think just good at us promoting it is a good way to do it.
John?
Page 99 in the town report. I asked Tim, and he graciously did it, as he always does, to write a special page and put in the town report that spoke only to the town forest, separate from the Conservation Commission, and he did that. So page 99 in the town report would be a good place to start.
Thank you.
Plus, we are also have been working with Boy Scout, Eagle Scout candidates who work on the town forest off of North Main Street as you're headed north on the left. It's something that we've talked about a few times this past year, and we're getting there. Page 99 in the town report.
Thank you. I have a question to Dennis, which is the Conflict of Interest Committee. Have you reviewed the current charter and regulations? If so, are there any areas of concern that you would like to change?
Yes, I have reviewed the charter, and as far as changing anything, I would first want to see what it is they're doing and how they're doing it. I think it's a relatively new thing to this area, and by the absence of the other committee members, I think it's just not known that it's there. So based on what issues there are, I think getting some exposure, and I think maybe the reason there aren't some issues signed up for is because people don't know that it exists. So, I mean, maybe if there's a little bit more coverage, but as far as changing, I don't see any reason to change it because I don't think it's really been utilized, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you. Now what we're going to do is, essentially I've gone through the questions, and some of them are similar, so I didn't ask you the same question over again. What I want to do is, if there's any questions that you'd like to ask from the mic, we'll allow a little time for that, and then you come up to the mic, ask a question, and we'll direct it to the right person. After that, then what I want to do is let each candidate spend a couple of minutes wrapping up why you should vote for them. Questions from the audience? So with no questions from the audience, going once? Twice? Yes, up to the mic.
I have a question about the safety complex.
You want to use the mic? Because we're recording it, so you got to use the mic.
I have a question about the safety complex. It was built a number of years ago, maybe 15 years ago, and it was supposed to be the biggest and the best and the greatest. And now I hear that it's not big enough and we're going to replace it. Well, what are we going to replace it? I know you said you haven't got a plan, but I'm nervous about how much money it's going to cost, and then what are you going to do with the building afterwards? Is this a place that you can do reconstruction, make it bigger, buy the land behind it, beside it, and add on instead of building a whole new building? And then, I don't know, maybe the plan is to take that old building and make it into the courthouse. And, but I don't know. I guess that's my question.
John?
The building was built 25 years ago. It was built in 1985. And when it was built, all of the literature, I looked it up, said the life expectancy of the building would be 25 years. And here we are. We started the committee a few years ago, and we did some analysis at that time. We decided then that there was no need to acquire additional land. There is some land behind the building that is undeveloped, and the person who owned the land was perhaps interested in making a swap, but our analysis at the time said we don't need any more land. We can do what we need to do on the existing land. We talked about building up, but that's a huge expense to strengthen the building. You run the risk of the work of being able to run the safety complex while you're doing that kind of construction. They have considered a plan to expand on the existing footprint. There is also one option, which is even looking at a different piece of land. I'm not on that committee, but I heard on Route 125 that there was possibility of moving out there. So to summarize, no options are off the table. 25 years ago, this town looked a lot different. The population was a lot different. There was a lot different development on Route 125. We had a much smaller department, police department especially. The police department is the department that seems to be driving the need. The fire department, relatively speaking, isn't as cramped for space as police is. Various issues related to that is there are all kinds of new laws and regulations that we have trouble adhering to, particularly with things like juvenile arrests, juvenile arrests, and having a place where juveniles are able to be kept separate from adults. And there are other policy and procedure kinds of things that we need to deal with. So the warrant article that we're asking for that funding is to come back with a recommendation that would say, of the options I just mentioned, expanding on the existing footprint, building someplace else, would pay for that kind of recommendation. And the building is 25 years old. That was the expected life expectancy when it was built.
Do you want to add anything, Buzzy?
Well, I kind of agree with John, and one of the issues that I have is I feel the same way. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm not really happy with us outgrowing it, but we have. And I feel as though I want to be, I hope I'm still a selectman when this happens, because I'm the watchdog. I'm the guy that will make sure that we'll get it done right, and not being the Taj Mahal, but a productive police department, and that's what I'm afraid of. They were talking upwards of $8 million. I think that's ludicrous, but, so that's where I stand on it. That's what I do best.
Joyce, do you have anything to add?
Pretty much the same of what John and Buzzy have said, but I think the safety of the employees is also important, and as it is now, there are some safety issues. It's a little risky with the size and the areas, and it's not just a matter of having a new building, it's a matter of keeping people safe and compliant with state and federal laws.
And just for further clarification on the 25-year life, is that due to the actual life of the building or due to its capabilities?
I think it was both, but I think mostly capabilities. If you think about 25 years ago and the expectations and requirements of a police department, they've changed a lot, in addition to the growth of 25 years. But it's not like the building is falling down. It isn't that kind of issue.
All right. That raises another question. We built a new library. What is the anticipated life of the library that we're in right now? Since you're running for library trustees, you may know.
I hope that when I'm gone, we'll still be using this building. We're growing. The use of the library is enormous, but we still have a lot of room to grow here, and we're not anticipating any kind of building, but we do need to upgrade a few things, and we're working on a plan, a 10-year plan or 5 or 10-year plan to address some of these issues. But as far as building onto this building, that's not in the foreseeable future.
I have one other question for the selectmen I just thought of. One of the town's responsibility is to provide a place to bury the dead. And then when I was a selectman, we added to the town cemetery. Is that adequate, and how much growth is left at the town cemetery?
10 years.
John?
You're testing my memory. When we formed the safety complex committee, however many years ago it was, all the years run together, we included concerns about the size of the town cemetery, because the available land behind the safety complex also continues down behind the cemetery. So if we were going to pursue the land for the safety complex, we would also pursue it with the idea of expanding the cemetery. So at the time, we did a study, and we found that expansion of the cemetery was not a pressing issue. I don't recall how many years we said. I guess life expectancy is the wrong term, but I don't recall what we said the growth of the cemetery would. I want to say it was something like on the order of 20 years, based upon the number of plots available and the existing land that we already had. Please don't anybody quote me on that, but we did do that analysis, we did do the mathematics, and it was not a pressing concern. It was not such a concern that we felt we had to immediately pursue that land that was behind the cemetery and the safety complex.
Thank you. Does anybody else have another question? Back there, if you go to the mic, just give your name. Thank you.
My name is Harry Birmingham. I have a question here that probably isn't quite as fair as it should be, because there are other people who are running for office and aren't here. My question is this. As candidates running for office, do you feel there is a conflict of interest when one or more candidates are running for more than one office? My reason for asking this is I realize that the town basically is a volunteer office holding situation. There may be some stipends, there may be, short money, really. I think probably one of the reasons, basically, that I'm asking this question is, you need people to come out and be more interested in what's going on in this town. In order to make that happen, I brought this question to each one of you to have an honest answer. That answer being yes or no as to whether you think it's a conflict of interest for anyone to run for more than one office at one time on the ballot. Thank you.
Does anybody want to answer that?
I'll answer that.
For all candidates, I'm sorry.
My answer is yes, and my answer is no. Yes, I think that you can run for two positions, two boards in the town, so long as they don't conflict with each other. For example, if you're on the Board of Selectmen, I don't believe you can serve on the Budget Committee as a Budget Committee member. You can be a consult from the Selectmen to the Board of Selectmen, to the Budget Committee, but you cannot be on the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen at the same time. There are other boards, I believe, that you cannot serve on at the same time.
Yeah. Let me just, you can't get elected to both at the same time, but a member of the Board of Selectmen does get appointed to the Budget Committee and has a vote. Okay. Anybody else?
Should you be on the ballot? Is that what he's asking?
Go ahead.
Should you be on the ballot for two committees? Is that what you're asking, or serve on two positions?
Actually, Joyce, I would have to say both. But the way I presented it there was anyone who's running on the ballot for two positions, do you feel it's a conflict of interest? That's basically what I'm asking.
Not if they're running on the ballot, no. I think that you can run for as many offices as you like.
Okay, now, if you're elected to,
Then
say
you-
you ran for 3, you get elected to 2.
Then you choose the one that you have more desire to be on.
You fill that other position that's left open.
Let me interject here. There are state laws that cover that. If you run for 3 different positions, you can do that. But the state law will tell you what's compatible and what's not compatible. And it may say you can only hold one of those positions.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing. It's governed by RSAs, and there are some that are strictly identified.
And that is in the conflict of interest bylaws, by the way.
Any other questions? Yes.
A question about water. Both of you boards, the planning board and the selectmen, said that water was a big issue and that we couldn't have factories per se in Plaistow because we didn't have any water supplies. We do have some sort of a water system downtown. As the planning board and the selectmen, when you say water, are you going to build a reservoir? Are we going to try and put a well field somewhere and put water lines up and down the streets of Plaistow or down into 125 so that the businesses can have water?
And so that's as a question, do you recommend?
Well,
Yeah.
will you recommend that? Is that part of your planning for the next 3 to 5 years, I guess?
So that would be first of all, let's go to the 2 planning board members, what they think about the water question.
I'll go first on this one. I think similar to the safety complex, like John had mentioned previously, all options would be on the table where we're a really unique town where 7, 8, 9,000 people, every house is on a residential well or a small community water system. Not many towns in New Hampshire can say that. So that aspect alone, it's very unique. As far as expanding and looking at options like you mentioned, they're all possibilities. I think it would certainly take some oversight and some studies to determine what makes the most sense. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it's something worth looking into.
Steve?
Yeah, one option that we've tossed around is obviously Haverhill. We hear, they have their water problems also, but, being Plaistow is the only two communities, one of the only two communities in the state of New Hampshire that doesn't have a body of water. But, if we could, again, with the Board of Selectmen, negotiate with Haverhill, because right now, Haverhill supplies the State Line Plaza, Shaw's, with their fire suppression system. Maybe in time that could be extended down 125. But again, as Charlie said, putting all options on the table, maybe that could be one of them.
Okay, what I want to do now is wrap it up, let each candidate, and I'll start with Dennis and work our way around, get a couple of minutes to explain why people ought to vote for you. Dennis. And repeat your office that you're running for again.
My name is Dennis Stafford, and I'm running for Conflict of Interest Committee. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank my colleagues here as well. I think I can bring a lot of expertise and experience from outside of the usual town politics. Like I said, I don't know anyone here, and maybe that's a good thing. The biggest problem I think a lot of people have with politicians is they feel that they're corrupt or they're crooked or what have you. But I think that this is a good opportunity to keep them in check and also satisfy the general public when they have a query like this gentleman had. Submit a query for investigation and then let it follow through the channels and see where it comes out. Maybe it is a conflict of interest. Maybe it's not. Some of these things may be gray areas, but until you query it, it's just going to continue to go on. And I think that there were a lot of vacancies in the board, and as I said earlier, I felt it's my obligation as a citizen to participate wherever I can. And where that was one of the biggest shortcomings, I felt that was an excellent opportunity to start early in my political career. I think it's great, especially like seeing Charlie here, because if you really look around the room, it's more experienced, older people. But I think that doesn't, this demographic in here doesn't represent the entire town. And I think if we can get some younger people to participate, and it's just not Plaistow, it's nationwide, and I think people need to participate, and sometimes if they see younger or newer faces, that it doesn't always have to be more experienced people, that younger people have a say or they can participate, and it doesn't have to be at the highest levels. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming out and listening to me stammer on.
Thank you, Dennis. Martha?
I think I've done the most stammering tonight. I'm Martha Fowler, and I'm running for the office of treasurer. I would hope that you would give me a chance to get the experience as treasurer. I don't bring a whole lot of experience as being a town treasurer at all. I have done past treasurer work for different civic organizations as far as scouting is concerned. I think Dennis has a nice valid point that it is good to see some new faces, younger faces or whatever, to encourage even younger to give back and improve their citizenship, which is part of what I work at with being a scout leader too. So I would hope you would give me a chance to be our town treasurer. Thank you.
Bernadine.
Bernadine Fitzgerald, incumbent. I can plan to continue balancing the 25 or 30 different checking passbook or construction bonds that I am responsible for to the penny every month to the bank. And that has been my record so far. And then I will continue on and keep the selectman, town manager apprised of our daily or weekly cash flow, so that enhances their job and makes it much easier so that we do not have to borrow in anticipation of taxes, and that saves the town, as I said, at least $50,000 a year. Thank you, and thank you for coming.
Bob?
Thank you. My name is Bob Harb, and I'm your write-in candidate for moderator. I'd like to tell you a quick short story. When I was a young scout, our scout troop went up to Pease Air Force Base for a tour of the base. And while I happened to be there, we were fortunate enough to hear a young man who was running for president. A few months later, he was elected president. And during his inauguration, John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." I feel the same way about what can I do for this town. I believe I'm qualified, I'm experienced, and I offer my services to the town as your next moderator. Thank you. Please vote for me, and you have to write in my name and fill in the oval. Thank you.
Steve?
Steve Ranlett. I'd like your vote on March 9th. Again, with my 12 years' experience of being on the planning board, I've enjoyed the position. 9 of them being the vice chairman, and last year being the chairman. I've worked well with all the board members, and also the new young ones that have come along. Thank you, Dennis. But again, I would ask for your support.
Charlie?
Well, I've really enjoyed the past year being on the planning board. I mentioned earlier, I'm often on the other side of the board presenting to other towns. So it's real nice to be able to work with the Plaistow planning board and give my different point of view, and also my technical point of view, where I work for a utility in a construction company. I have a different set of skills, and if elected, I'll continue to bring that to the planning board. So I really appreciate your vote.
Lisa?
I'm Lisa Withy, and I'm seeking my 3rd term on the school board. I think it's really important to give back to the community, and for me right now, the biggest interest for me is education, because I still have children that are going through the school, and I feel like there's still a lot of work that can be done in that area. So I'm hoping to finish 3 more years and graduate with my oldest son and move on to maybe something different in the community. I failed to mention that I also serve on the Plaistow Highway Safety Committee here in town too. So I hope that you'll consider voting for me at the election on March 9th. Thank you.
John?
Hi, I'm John Sherman. I'm asking your vote to continue serving you as your selectman for the next 3 years. I think I bring a lot of worthwhile experience to the Board of Selectmen. I love this town. I raised my family here. I chose to live here. I think it's a great place to live. I think some of my strengths are that I'm pretty much always prepared. Whenever there's the Board of Selectmen agenda is distributed, I spend a lot of time on the weekend researching the issue, looking up what I need to look up so that when I get to the meeting on Monday, I'm prepared. As I'm listening to the questions, it seems so much different than when I first ran 9 years ago. And 9 years ago, a lot of the questions were, oh my God, what are you going to do about this problem? And I think in the last 9 years, we've made a lot of changes and a lot of improvements, and we've gotten our hands around the issues and the problems that are out there. We're working them. They haven't gone away, but I don't think you see a lot of huge day-to-day problems with the town of Plaistow. I think it's a well-run town. I think you're well-served by your elected officials. One of the things that didn't get mentioned tonight that I'll mention is in our budget, we are carrying no debt. We have not, all of the money that has been borrowed in the past has been paid off. We're not carrying any debt at all. And I think that's really unusual for any town in the state of New Hampshire. I think that's helped us fight the economic crisis that we've had the past couple of years, that we're not paying for things that were in the past. I really think the town has improved a lot over the last 9 years. When I was first elected, there was talk of a dark side, if people remember that. There seemed to be divisions in the town, and people are on one side or another. And I think those days have gone away, and that everybody feels that they are fairly represented by the Board of Selectmen. And I would like to continue representing you on the Board of Selectmen. And I thank you for your being here tonight, and I hope you come out to vote. And as we talked last night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, I think the polling hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
You should know better, Barry.
And next time we should
We don't
say,
wanna
please
fill
turn
his
off your
shoes."
cell phones.
I think he's trying to give us a message.
I'll shut my phone off.
Joyce?
So thank you for your vote. Thank you.
I'd like to bring to the town my experience. I have 12 years of experience in property and business management. I have experience in development management. I attend seminars at the New Hampshire Local Government Center to keep myself updated and educated on current issues, current laws with municipalities. I've enjoyed serving on the Budget Committee in town. As John so graciously put it, no debt budget committee, and we are proud of that. And I respectfully request your vote, and I encourage everyone to get out and vote on March 9th. Thank you.
Buzz?
Here, thank you. That's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, I think they can hear me.
Here, here's another one.
Oh, beautiful. Buzzy Blinn, I just want to tell everybody out there that I'm with John. I'm part of the selectmanship that's going on right now. We've had a tremendous year. I think we've had a tremendous 20 years. When I first started out, I started out the budget 20 years ago. 18 years ago, I became a selectman. And out of the 18 years, this town was in a bad state of affairs. The whole 125 was dead. Everything was going down for Plaistow. Plaistow was not what it is today. And I'm proud to say that I was part of that and a member of the board that would get there. Again, I probably didn't show off my real talents tonight. I think I'm more of a backroom guy. I kind of feel as though my expertise isn't in some of the things that we were talking about. Just to be honest with you, I think the computer is an enemy at times to people. I like a good phone call. I like to talk to people. I think it's got to a point where things can go around that you don't know by email. I don't like it, but I have to put up with it. But in the same token, I think Plaistow is one of the best towns in the southern tier, and I was part, there isn't anything in this town that I didn't have my hands on. And if you think it's still a nice town, a nice place to live, you can bet your life the 18 years of experience. Just let me tell you, I run a business for 38 years, been married 47. I have good credentials, and I'm pretty steady, and I wouldn't give up. And in 18 years of somebody's life, being a selectman is something you got to be interested in. My wife really didn't want me to run this year, and she finally gave me the okay because she knew I wanted to. I think we got a great new town manager. We got some energy going in this town, and it's still the best town. And all the things that we talked about tonight, we're gonna straighten out. I just think this is the best we've ever been, and I want to be part of it. So if you get time and you want to vote for me, I appreciate it. And it's the old guy on ballot, the second one on the ballot. Thank you.
Mary Ellen.
Hi, Mary Ellen Pelletier. I'm running for re-election as town clerk. I just want to thank the voters for their past support. I'm running unopposed, so I'm not going to beg for your votes this year. I'll have to take what they give me. But I'd love to see the people come out and vote and get involved. They come in and complain about taxes, but they don't vote. So the people out there listening, come in and vote. If you have questions, you can call the planning board, you can call the selectman's office, you can call our office. We'll try to answer questions about what's on the ballot.
Jennifer?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody that came out tonight, and I'd like to thank all the candidates that showed up. It's always nice to have a good outing. The trustees and I are always happy to have this evening because I think it brings the citizens and the candidates together. And on that note, vote for me. I'm on the ballot. Library trustee. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank three groups tonight. Group number one is the people that came out to listen to the candidates. It's shown that you've taken an interest and you want to know who these people are that are seeking an office to represent you for the next year, 2 or 3 years in their position. The second group I want to thank is the library and library trustees for hosting this and making this facility available. I think it's a great thing because it's been recorded and it will be played back a number of times between now and the time of election on March 9th. And finally, I truly thank the candidates for coming out. I know it's not easy. I've been there myself a number of times. But you've done a great job tonight, and I hope in the future that we even see more of our young candidates out. And it's good to see you out, and thank you for everybody for participating tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm.
Thank you, Norm.